Larry, welcome back.
Greetings.
Now, what Edward have we got? He's not got his speaker on yet. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm doing a little housekeeping over here. I got a little bit behind. Edward, what Edward is this? Edward, looks like you got your microphone on, not your camera. Well, let him come back a little bit. Okay. Keenan, what's the first?
Yes, sir.
What's the first name?
Jay.
Jay. All right, that's right.
Yeah. I was here for the meeting with 402 on Tuesday,
Right.
I guess it was. And I just wanted to come back and monitor the meeting here today.
You're quite welcome.
Because I was in B40 for a while. And I also wanted to say thank you, Steve, very much for everything you're doing here.
Well,
And so I'll just sit back now and just watch the meeting if that's okay.
It's a lot of fun and everybody's welcome. Although
Yes, sir.
I would like to know, I'd like to know who Edward is. But well, we'll have to wait till that comes about. All right. There was an earlier period of time on B40 that the command and control element of the 4-Corps Mike Force was somewhere other than in Cantot. That was when Bob Topp was in charge. And even though Marichek and all these people were there earlier than 1968, I guess, it really was mid 1968 when it was set up as a Mobile Strike Force Command. And that is Cantot. I guess they actually got to open up Cantot in March of '68.
What
Of the people we have here, who's the earliest?
I was there in July of '68.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay. How had the compound been established for a while at that point, or what?
Yeah, it was already up and running, but when I got there in July of '68, I went to A403, and it was July of '69 that I became S5 with Lieutenant Lehman, I think, on B40.
Yeah, we missed you this morning. Larry was talking about you.
Oh. What group was this morning?
That was 405.
405. Yeah. Was Tom Nelson there?
Yes, he was.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, I guess he was mentioning you too as well. Yeah, see, when you don't show up, that's when you get talked about. All right. I am going to just put this up for the time being. This appears, this is a map of Cantot, and so far all the information has been confirmed that the C team was across the runway over here and B40 was here. And I just learned from this morning that some more construction sort of took place in this area to stick in all the A teams that moved into Canto. Is that your recollection? Is that everybody else have that same information? They expanded from here to the east side, to the west side of the runway.
I don't recall that. I was there until February of 1970.
And there was no construction over here?
I don't think so. Sergeant Ibarra had an apartment down there, I think. And that was all, I think that was all rice paddies. I don't remember seeing any construction at that
Okay,
area.
somebody from 405 said that they had moved into an area on the west side of the runway. And
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know what the date of this map is. Should be about 1969. And I would have seen, if I would have thought I was seeing more construction if it was there.
I have no recollection of that, but then I didn't get out much.
Okay, so we've seen the map. Now, we're using Mike as the starting point over here. So why don't you continue a little bit about what was going on when you arrived at B40 specifically?
Well, after spending a year on A403, B40 was still deeply involved with the area around Nui Koto, out in the Seven Mountains area in Chowdak province. In the spring of '69, B40 was involved in that spring offensive when the Nha Trang Mike Force came down and cleared out the area called the Rock Pile. It was northwest of Hill 614, Nui Koto. I was out there, but I wasn't. I was on A403 at the time, but I wasn't involved in the ground action. I was working logistics in a little village there. But after Nha Trang cleared that out, I never went back to Nui Koto. I think the VC eventually repopulated and took back the rock pile on the northwest corner of Nui Koto. And
Is that what we call the Tukchuk Knoll or $1 Million Knoll?
yes, $1 Million Knoll, Tukchup, Superstition Mountain, the rock pile. It went by different slang terms. Yes.
There is, if you Google it, there is a snippet of a Walter Cronkite, about 5-minute Walter Cronkite story. I think Maury Safer was there. Little story lasted about 5 minutes about that battle or that effort, if you will, if you Google it.
Yes.
Over.
Yes. The reporter on the ground was Richard Threlkeld.
Yeah, stand corrected. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And Tom Nelson from A405, he and I went back there on December 19th, 2011.
Wow.
That rock pile, the knoll, had been turned into a national park. And as you approach from the west, you had to pay to go through the gate. There was a restaurant and a karaoke bar there, souvenir stand, museum, and then a man-made pond off the southwest corner of the rock pile where you could rent paddle boats. And then they had a series of stairways, and you could walk up into the lower part of the western slope of the rock pile. And the napalm black rocks were still evident. A lot more greenery and growth from what was in the early 70s. It was we spent the better part of a day there. It was a very interesting day.
Well, just to make you feel happy, not too homesick about it, let me open this here. Where is it?
I ran into a guy on the internet that was married to a Vietnamese lady. That family owned that area, and he wanted to put up a memorial on top of Nui Kodo to the Mike Force, but the VN government wouldn't let him. I found that
Oh.
I wouldn't be.
Now, is that picture of the mountain Nui Kodo, or is that Tupchuck Knoll?
No, that's the rock pile. That's the little outcropping off the northwest corner of Nui Kodo.
Yeah, that was $1 million knoll. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, there's the mountain. Okay.
Yeah,
That again is the rock pile from the west southwest.
when we were the guerrilla force, we tried to take it with 100 men, and
Oh my goodness.
quickly got chased away.
Oh yeah.
Quickly, we did overrun the village of Olam, which I think was maybe that picture before. The village of Olam was very close to the base on the south side, and we could see the movement from Olam to the knoll from the top all day. So we decided to come down, and we overran the village of Olam. That was
Could you show those pictures again and back up to see Titsworth?
Yeah, Titsworth was the CO at Makwa at A402.
yeah.
He and O'Connor, Captain Richard O'Connor. We're just like Mutt and Jeff, such characters. And I remember 50 O'Connor was a scrawny little guy. He was an ordnance officer, I think, with thick glasses. And I will never forget Titsworth telling his buddy O'Connor, says, you couldn't get laid in a whorehouse with a fistful of $100 bills. They were just buddies and characters.
To me, neither one of those guys looks like Titsworth. Titsworth,
Titsworth
No,
was a big old boy, as I recall.
he was very tall.
yeah,
I have somewhere I have a picture of him.
he was my team leader at Mukwa.
well, these are pictures from Bill Boggs, who was the XO at the time.
Yep,
Remember him well.
I do too. Yeah.
Do you remember Quist?
Yeah, I remember Quick.
Who's talking there?
Quick, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, was at Tochow.
Now, Quist was lieutenant colonel. He came in and take over the Mike Force in January of '69, January 17th or thereabouts. On January 21st, he was gone, or 23rd. I don't know what happened. He wasn't. I had been told that he was killed by Dubovik, but he didn't. He survived long after the war. Retired as a full bull. But
Well, on the list here, it says Quist was the commander for 3 friggin' days, from 1/18/69 to 1/21/69.
that's what I'm trying to find out. Somebody who knew why it was such a short trip.
If I remember Quick correctly, he was a tall guy. He came to to Tochow around December of '67, January of '68.
No, this is a lieutenant colonel.
He's what?
Lieutenant colonel.
Francis A. Quist.
No, the
detachment commander.
one I'm thinking of is the Sergeant first class.
Yeah, no, that's maybe somebody else, but not him. So I don't know if anyone was around at that time. I'd like to find out, because it's kind of a question in my mind. I spent some time trying to track him down, only to find his obituary. So,
You're saying Quick was a lieutenant colonel?
yes,
Okay, not the same one then.
no, he took command of the Mike Force, and about 3 days later, he was gone. Dubovik.
You know why? You know why?
That's what I'm trying to find out. Now, Boggs puts a note in his paperwork here. And he said, that the new commander, he just assigned to B-40 in January 69 and was called on to take over the Kodo operation. All right. The new commander, Lieutenant Colonel Quist, was assigned to the 4th Mobile Strike Force also on that day. He departed for the Kodo operation. He was a medevac from the Kodo operation on 23 January. So he was medevac is something happened. He got wounded or something. But you know, it'd still be interesting to me to find out what it was. And so far, I haven't found anybody to tell me. So, okay. Phil, you preceded Terry Fox in the 3 shop, I believe.
I regret to tell you all, I remember some of my time there, but I think I've repressed everything. Mike Hammers was there. I got there in around early April of 69. I was with the C team long enough to do an investigation of somebody who committed suicide. And then I got sent to an A team. As I told you in our telephone call, I don't remember what A team it was. And you said there's no record of it, but I was definitely on an A team. And then I came back to B-40 and I was there until early February of 1970. But I couldn't tell you the name of a single person that was there with me. And I don't know why I've put all that behind me, but I have.
Yeah, I remember you. I left in February of 70 as well. And I
Yeah.
remember you and of course, Lieutenant Lehman. And I see John Bernard, the radio man, is trying to log on here.
Well, I'd like to catch up with you later, Mike, so you can tell me all about me. I was at Nui Kodo, and I was out on a lot of other little operations here and there, and I was on Fuquoc Island at some point, and I remember spending Christmas Eve 1969 in an ambush position right on the Cambodian border. And I remember a lot of other stuff like that, but I'm sorry I don't remember any of you guys.
So Phil, I don't know if you look, Brother Sherman's got just an incredible roster list.
I'm going to catch up with him. I've been busy with it. He called me a couple of weeks ago and he had tracked me down. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
I mean, it's online and he's got you listed as Phil Ander. So, I mean, he's got enormous information. all these units.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Yeah. The only person in the military ever called me Flander was Major Randolph at Fort Bragg before I went to Vietnam. Anyway, I remember a lot of stuff I did, but I just don't remember anybody I was there with.
Well, one thing, you spent a lot of time, I think, at C4, and that was from about March of 69. Well, March and April, you got a Bronze Star for achievement on some particular project you were working on. Was that the suicide investigation?
I did a number of things. That was about my second day there. Somebody stuck his M16 under his chin and leaned on the trigger. But I did a number of things there, but I really wasn't at the C team too long before I went to an A team, and then came back and was on B40 for many months.
Yeah, I didn't pick up that 18 assignment. So we'll have to figure out somebody who can figure it out.
Yeah, I was going to send an email. That email list that had 40 on it that you sent out to people. That's a lot of 18 people also, not just B40 people.
Well, there are, the list that you have inviting you to this meeting was only for the B40 names.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I'd like to send an email out to all the 18 people and say, hey, was I on your 18?
Well, let's try to figure out somehow some clue of something. You know, something.
Well, there
happened.
were guard geese in our compound. I don't know if every A team had guard geese, but we had guard geese. When I got there, I remember supervising, improving the perimeter wire with trip flares and other stuff.
Okay, so this is 69. About
And
May-
I think I was only at the C team for about a month. That is the month of April. So it may have been May or sometime after that I went out to the A team.
I'll send a note out to 4 Corps A team commanders or deputies, XOs, and see if anybody remembers the geese.
You don't have your Form 66 or any of your orders?
No, I don't. You know, I got my DD 214 and that's about it.
Well, you can write, what is that place in St. Louis? And they're pretty prompt, and you can get a copy of your Form 66, and that should have all of your assignments right there.
Yeah, I got out of the Army at the end of August of 1970. I went to graduate business school and then, did other things. And I really put everything in the military behind me until I moved to Knoxville at the end of August of 2012. And in the spring of 2013, I saw a little blurb in the Knoxville News Sentinel about a group that was starting a Vietnam Veterans of America chapter. And I went to that meeting. I became the secretary and helped get the chapter formed. And so I kind of got back into military stuff then, but for 50 years, I put everything away. The only thing I've got is the field jacket that I bought at Fort Bragg, since they made officers pay for them.
Yeah. Well, Terry Fox, how you doing?
Tom Daniels, been a long time, man. You've gotten old.
Really?
Good to see you, man.
I'll
Where
be
you living now?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia, my hometown. I'll be 77 in a week or two.
Good for you.
So-
Right now, I'm in Lake Tahoe. I moved out of California, moved here, and moved to South Florida. So summers in Tahoe and the winters in Florida.
All right, so you retired from the real estate business altogether?
Yeah, 5 years ago, I decided to put a zipper in my chest, and it got too much, so I sold my business and moved here and moved to Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember hammers from the dispensary. You got there and you were working with HAPCA, weren't you?
No, I was working with Lieutenant Lehman in S5.
Okay.
I remember HAPCA.
You were a medic. You were a medic by MOS, right?
No, I was demo. And then I was demo when I was on A403.
Hmm.
But no, I wasn't a medic at all.
Yeah.
I can't remember who was working with HAPCA in the dispensary there. Milby was a medic. I forget who else.
You've got some background going on. I've got to mute you again.
And I think John John Bernard might be trying to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was a real short fella, thick eyeglasses, kind of scrawny, that was a medic that was Hapka's assistant for a time.
Hey, hold on, guys. John, if you're trying to speak, you have your mic muted. John, your mic is muted.
Yeah, he's got some background noise in there.
There, now he's, okay. Well,
And he's a commo man too.
That's right.
John, if you can hear us, John, if you can hear us, you should
reboot.
leave and come back in. Try again.
Reboot. Yeah.
Reboot. Change the battery.
Well,
Stuff like that follows you your whole life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Tommy, you preceded both Phil and Terry.
Pardon me?
I don't know what you know about John here. I can't make anything out of that.
John, you're screwing up all the video, all the audio. You're screwing up a lot of stuff.
John, we can't hear you. Log out and come back in.
Yeah,
there you go.
I just muted him.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
I think that's the way John always talked.
No, we can read lips.
Yeah. He's telling us to do something that's anatomically impossible.
Right. Yeah, he's got his IT specialist there.
Well, that got the boss involved now.
Tommy, you were there at the 3 shop before Phil and Terry.
Yeah.
What was going on? at the time
Well,
you were there?
I was medevac in around April '68 from the White Force, and then I got back in country in January '69 and was Dupovic's S3, and everything was all about Nui Koto, and then Fotopoulos got shot, I think in March of '69, and I replaced him at A403. And then we finally got the mountain, and we had to stay out there for 3 months holding it. And then the CIDG replaced us, and the NVA came in and ran them off. And then that was it. The mountain went back to the way it was before. And then we went on to operate on first on after Nui Koto, we went to NuiCom, no, Big Nui Jai, worked there, then NuiCom, and then the Nabang Woods. So we stayed busy, never had time to train our troops, just recruit them, and they get blown up and recruit somebody else, you know, that, you know, learn how to shoot a gun, and that was about it.
Tommy, were you at Tochow?
I was very briefly.
Yeah, I
in
emailed you one time, and you said you remembered me, but I didn't remember you at Tochow.
No, I was only out there for a couple of days,
Oh,
working with Kittleson, and that was in January '69. Nutella and I left Kakai and went to the Light Force. And so I went out to Tochow for a few days and coordinated with Pappy Kittleson about getting Tochow moved to Muckwa. And then Tet of '68 broke, and you know, we had Don Fuchs people, I think it was out at Median 2 when that camp was under construction. And then what happened? Then we had the first Snake Man operation, which we went that French penal colony on the end of the airstrip, that old French compound at Muckwa.
yeah.
And that's where we launched the first Snake Man operation up up on the border between VTT and Kakai.
We moved from Tochow at the end of February, as I remember.
Who was?
Yeah, well after Tet, it was toward the end of February, we moved to Tochow, Muckwa. And Kittleson went to Muckwa with us. Well, he was team sergeant. Yeah, the only offices I remember at okay, you were there, you stayed for a very short time. But there were so many of us, you know, 2 full teams. You know, there were little groups that hung out together. There's a lot of people I don't remember.
Yeah, well, I got medevac shortly after Snake Man 1. Medevac back to Conus. Well, I was at the 3rd Surge in Saigon for a little while first. But we crossed paths, I'm sure, somewhere, or you may have D-Rose, but the Kittleson was at that French compound thing. And then there was Moran, the guy that spoke French, if you remember. He was very short. Kittleson was very short. Blue was there, Simpson, Dollar, Nutella, myself, and Vigil. We did the first Snake Man. We had about 77 troops. And I didn't go back to Muckwa after that because I went to the C team after the first Snake Man operation, and then to I went up to Nha Trang for something, and that's when I went over to the dispensary, and they decided I had some bad shit, so I went to the 8th Field Hospital and then to the renal ward down at 3rd Surge in Saigon. It was Weil's disease. It's a level higher than leptospirosis. So
Kettleson didn't stay long in Muckwa. He was getting short.
yeah,
I'd say maybe within a month he was gone. And yeah, then we went through a series of team sergeants.
yeah.
Simpson was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, y'all know that who were y'all talking about a while ago? Titsworth. You know, he died about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, Steve told me that the other day. I didn't know that. I had heard, but I didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
We had a little mini Mike Force reunion in Texas, A402, and Titsworth was there.
Yeah, I went to one of those. It was either the one before or after Titty was there.
You went to the one at the Air Force Recreation Center in Texas, did you?
Yeah. Yeah, on the lake.
On the lake.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your picture here, but I was there that day, or we were there 2 or 3 days. But in your picture now, I don't recognize you.
Well, I've aged a little bit since then.
That was about 10 years ago, though.
Yeah.
Maybe 12, I don't know.
No, I got a cancer, one of those Agent Orange things.
Simpson was there.
Yeah.
Blue was there. Me.
Rose.
Yeah, there was 2 or 3 guys from 401.
Mm-hmm.
Burleson.
Ernie Jensen from Muckwa was there.
Who?
Ernie Jensen, big medic.
Yeah, he was there. He was there.
Well, we've all changed. As I recall, Hammer had hair back when I worked with him. Didn't you have hair back then?
Did.
Good.
You guys are cruel.
That doesn't bother me.
I always remember Hammer and I had what they called a Pole War squad. And I had like 8 or 10 Vietnamese.
Yeah,
And they were the most religious people you ever saw because at Christmas would come, they were all Christians and wanted Christian off. Christmas. Then you'd have Buddha's birthday and they were all Buddhist and they wanted Buddha's birthday. Hell, ever formed most religious bunch of people you ever saw in your life.
yep. All religions.
Was Malika at B40 when you guys were there? Son Major,
Doesn't ring a bell.
huh?
What did he do?
He was the Sergeant Major. That's the B40 Sergeant Major. Malika.
George?
Yeah.
Oh, that was like 2 years before there. He was there in 67,
Yeah.
looks like.
68.
Well, the chart says he left in December of 67, but I didn't get there until the spring of 69. So he was long before me.
Mhm.
Was there a Lieutenant Metalik there? Metalik.
Leonard?
Gail Metallic. No, you were there a lot earlier. Almost everybody here is 69 and beyond.
Well, Gail Metallic was on one of the teams in 68 because he took a snake man in, and after looking at the after action reports you sent me, Steve, I was thinking that Metallic had taken in the second snake man, but it was Thurston and Godsey that did the second one. So they must have run a third one, and that was the one that Metallic was on, and they got beat up so badly.
What's the snake man thing? I never heard of that.
Davis, the medic Davis was killed on that operation with Metallic, and Metallic got shot and broken a femur, and he hid in the grass all night until the next day. Don Fuchs people came over there, and he was found.
Yeah, I was at Muckwa and the message came in, does anyone know Davis by sight? And I said, yes, I do. I went through training with him, training group. So they said, well, you identify him. Because he was black and he had a lot of dirt on his face, they weren't sure if he might have been a Cambode. The people that recovered him didn't know him. And so they flew the helicopter to Muckwa, and I unzipped the body bag, and yeah, it was Davis. That was in the spring of 68.
Yeah, wasn't he on 401?
Huh?
Wasn't he on 401 at Don?
Yeah, he was on 401.
Dave, what do you put up on the screen?
All right. One little note for you of what happened after you went. In the history I did for 73, it says the 72 rather, no 73. The CIG irregulars were by 1972 experienced Rangers armed with M16s. They were a match for a North Vietnamese army now composed of youthful conscripts. Then this is a report from 1973 from the DAO. I think it's a little bit more enthusiastic than it should be, but they say during September, October 73, the 10 Ranger battalions, that's the 10 Special Forces camps that were converted to Border Rangers and 4 Corps, conducted operations in the Seven Mountains area. Although both sides had heavy casualties, the Rangers gained control of the area and trapped the main elements in the caves and occupied the highest peak at Nui Jai. Well, that seems to be the history of Nui Kodo. You know, the enemy was always inside the caves. The rest of the mountain belonged to whoever was attacking it. So that is the report that the DAO considers to be a win. The Ranger battalions left the CIGG camps and they became rough puff camps or PF camps. And then the Ranger battalions, the CIDG, left in 4 Corps, left 4 Corps and went out and joined the Ranger groups, the mobile Ranger groups, which is quite a stretch from what the operations they were conducting when we were there. So that was the last of the A-Team's actions in 4 Corps in 1973. At that point,
Wow.
or 72 rather, they left.
When did the 5th group leave?
This group left in 1971. So that was early 71. The colors went home. And this is almost nearly 2 years later. They're still out there.
Were the Snake Man operations in the Plain of Reeds a lot?
Yeah,
I remember going to the Plain of Reeds a lot, almost like every operation.
well, if you look at a topo map, it shows Plain of Reeds in Cambodia. But that same topography extends down into Vietnam.
But what were the Snake Man operations? I never heard of that. What's the derivation of that?
There were a series of operations that were attributed to one of the elements of the Mike Force. Near as I can tell, there were 5 separate operations. They're after action force for about 3 of them that still exist. I think they all originated out of one A-Team. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. I don't know which one it was.
Just a normal kind of operation, nothing particular about the name, the Snake Man, nothing.
No,
Normal operation.
For example, 403 and 402 at that time, 67 went on blackjack operation, blackjack 41, blackjack.
Right, all right,
2.
okay.
Another team, I don't remember which one it was. Tommy might be able to add to that. Went on the Snake Man operations. So until things got consolidated under B40, they each had their own little string of operations, and I don't know how they were targeted. It's just that's what they were.
Well, if you remember at Tochow, that was 2 teams there.
Right.
402 and 403, and 401 was Don Fu. When we got the order to relocate the Tochow camp to Muckwa so that we had a year-round airfield,
Yeah.
both teams, A402 and A403, started the physical move to Muckwa. And it was from amongst those troops that the first Snake Man operation, that was when I was on, the first Snake Man operation was run.
Okay, so here's Snake Man 1, 2, 3, and 5. But these operations all, this is 402.
401.
Says 402. 68. And this is 401, the Dan Fook. That's Snake Man 2.
Yeah, that's the one that Thurston and Godsey had.
Mhm.
Snake Man 2.
So, but then you come to 1969 and you have, Nui Kodo and Tukchup Knoll and the names here. This one, I don't know what this one was here.
Steve, this online, I assume?
No, this is a thumb drive that I sell.
And where do I find that?
That's on my website, specialforcesbooks.com.
Okay.
And this one here includes 3rd, 4th, and the Trang Mike Forces all on one disc. Okay. So anyway,
All right, the heading on your bookstore website, what do I look for? Fourth Corps operations?
well, you look for specialforcesbooks.com. That's the website. Let's go back to that.
Has anybody been back to Canto? I have looked often. It wasn't B40, but it was C4. I always fondly remember spending 6 months in Feisenheimer's Folly, that pyramid concrete bunker is, and I've tried to look and I can't find it. Is that still there, or has that been leveled, or what? I assume most everybody knows what I'm talking about.
You mean the commo bunker?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it a commo bunker. It was, hell, it was everything. It was like a concrete.
Oh, yeah, built across the street.
Yeah, I mean, hell, everybody was in there. The 3, the 2, the 1, you name it. It's like a pyramid with the top cut off. And it was called Feisenheimer's Folly when I was there. And I've tried to see whether it's still there or not.
Feisenheimer is still there. He was my boss in Playcoop. Then before he moved down to the Delta.
Yeah, but apparently he was the motivator of building that thing, I guess.
That's a story I hadn't heard.
I mean, you all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
It was an unbelievable thing across from where a lot of the C4 stuff was. I don't know, it was like a half a block, a solid concrete, like you built one of these pyramids in Egypt. They cut the top off. The sides were slanted to stop, RPGs and so forth. It was air conditioned. You went in, I don't know how many damn offices were there, but I know the 3 was there, the CO, the XO, the S1. I mean, I think all the operations were in there. Just a huge monstrosity. It was great, but it was unbelievable. But I've tried over.
Let me give you a little tour of the Special Forces Books website here. This is a page that you get to when you come right into it. And if you click on 4 Corps, you got a list of camps, and you can click on a camp and go to that camp and get a list of people from the camp. Okay. So over here, click here for camp oral history videos. All right, the blue ones, there's some videos posted. I'll be posting more over time. Okay, that's what we're doing now. Back to books and CDs. Here's the Green Beret magazine, and then Who's Who series, and the index after action report series is 4th Mobile Strike Force, but the 4th Mobile Strike Force includes B-36, B-40, and B-55. That's all the same one. Don't try to order 3 different times.
The B-20 after action reports, that's not on the disc I bought from you, is it?
Yes, it is. That is what's up with this you bought.
2 Corps Mike Force disc that I bought from you. The
That's
after action reports are on there?
That's what it is. 2 Corps Mike Force B-20.
Well, I'm gonna have to figure out how to work that CD.
You call me up when you're sitting in front of your computer. I'll hold your hand.
Because I know one time at a reunion, I asked you to look something up for me that I tried, and you on that disc, and you did, and you gave me the information.
Call me up when you're sitting at your computer with a disk and a drive.
Well, I'll put it back in the computer and play with it and see if I figure it out.
It's a lot easier if I just walk you through it.
All right.
Don't be shy. Okay, so that's basically the major parts of things that are on my website out here.
I bought that Who's Who from Thailand from you.
Yeah.
And you gave me a discount. I don't know if you remember why.
Well,
But-
probably it was when I was just introducing it.
No, you called me twice and we had like marathon phone calls because I spent 4 years with the 46.
Well,
You
maybe,
were asking me all these questions.
and therefore I rewarded your help.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent 4 years with the 46.
Mhm. Okay.
Other than training the Thai Army, Randy, what else was the 46 company doing?
I was with Company A and we were OPCON to the CIA. And we ran the classified programs training the Hmong troops. They'd come in from Laos, we'd run them through refresher training, rearming, this, and then they'd ship back to Laos. We also had the Commando Raider course, which we put them through a we put them through jump school. And they were like, it was called the Commando Raider course. Road and River Watch intelligence. Mostly it was Hmong battalions that would come through, refitting, retraining, and ship back. Most Company A and Company B, Company C, they did the Thai training and the police training. But A Company was OPCON to the CIA. Everything we did was stay classified. It was good because the Army had nothing to do with us. The only person allowed in the camp was the commander of the 46, and he had to ask for permission. It was funny, but the Army had nothing to do with us. I mean, they paid us, but the CIA fed us.
That was at that location.
Huh?
That was at that location. The CIA controlled it.
Yeah.
That was what, Hua Hin?
No, who in, as I remember, was police
Okay.
training. We were at Pitsanulok and
I'll look, yeah.
Unknown Sang and what was the other camp? Anyway,
Then they also had another mission, which was training the Thai battalions that went to Vietnam. And that part was handled by people from the first group who came in on TDY basis.
well, we were doing that at Kanchanaburi,
Yeah.
the Thai volunteer battalions.
One of the interesting things about 46 Company is that who is that investigative reporter? Drew somebody or another. He wrote an article that said, at least there aren't any special forces people here in Thailand.
Now, not to go into Thailand stories, but yeah, every once in a while where there was combat in Thailand with the 46, and that wasn't far from the truth. There were no CIBs, no awards, nothing like that. There was zero.
There are no awards for 46 Company because you're not supposed to have been in a combat zone. And every one of the casualties were in fact, we were able to track them down as accidents.
Yeah, there was about 10 of them.
So
There was a sister that I made a comment on a Facebook forum, Special Forces forum, and it wasn't vetted, only Special Forces. Families could join too.
Yeah.
And the sister of, what was his name? GUMBA, I think he drowned at Nampung Dam. She PM'd me and asked me for details, but she sort of suspected there was something sinister about that, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It looks like Bernard's back again, but he's got the same problem. I don't know why his microphone isn't working. I would go do the microphone test that I sent you and make sure you hear yourself before you try it here. zoom.us/test. It's on the email that I sent out on this. I heard a burst of sound out there, but we're not hearing you clearly. You've got a very strange microphone sound.
It's
going
got
on.
your name on it.
Got it in. Well, this is the last camp in Vietnam that I have to do. I've been doing this now for 8 months
Wow.
and got through all the camps. I did not do other Mike forces, and I did not do most of the B detachments. In 4 Corps, I did more of them, just because it was a different setup in 4 Corps than elsewhere, and I really had to go ahead and do it. The Mike forces in 2 Corps or 3 Corps, they were basically established commands. But until you got to Canto, you basically had 4 or 5 A teams in the Mike force. That was the Mike force, separate A teams. So I decided to cover them separately. And that's probably pretty good because the data that I have on my CD-ROM is very incomplete. The after action reports that were written or maybe just survived are very limited in comparison to I Corps and 2 Corps, where I've got more than enough on those for a full CD-ROM, just for one Mike force.
You know, after we converted to Mike Force and became the 2nd Battalion of the 4th Corps Mike Force, but we never went out as a battalion. Or really, it was years later that I realized or thought about it that we were the 2nd Battalion. But in 4th Corps on the Mike Force, we never operated as battalions. It was always company-size operations. Whereas in 2 Corps, there were 5 battalions and they were fixed. I mean, you knew what the company you had, you knew you operated as a battalion. But in 4th Corps, it was sort of, not to say loose, but we would just go out on an operation, you know. But I guess, and I don't remember companies, numbered companies in the 4th Corps. Anyway. Yeah, Muckwa, I was sort of aware that there was a 41st company and 42nd company, but it wasn't like the Americans were assigned to the company. Americans rotated going out and they took one of the companies with them. Whereas in 2 Corps, you were assigned to the company permanently. And when you went out, you're going out with that company and the battalion's going out. Anyway.
Tommy, you want to comment on that?
Well, on 403 and 69, it was a full battalion, and the Americans on the A teams, Americans on the team were assigned to a particular company and pretty much stuck with them. But the problem we had was having enough Americans, because we got down to about 5. You know, we stretched pretty thin with that. I don't ever think in 69 we had a full 12-man A team on 403.
Boy, in 68 at Muckwa, we had over 12 guys on that team. We had about 4 or 5 officers, as I remember, but we had over 12. I say that because, yeah, we had a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Terry, do you or Phil have any other insights on operations in terms of size?
Our recollection at the end of 69 is Tom, I thought we had a full team. I was on 403 for about 7 or 8 months. And then I got moved up to the B team in the spring of 70, February, March 70. But Tom, I thought we had a full team, but my recollection of the problems were with the LLDB. They just, they didn't get along with anybody. And they showed up for parades or formation, but they sure
Payday.
didn't do anything else.
They showed up on payday.
Yeah.
We never had LLDB. In fourth corps or two corps. We never had LLDB.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Yeah.
As a Mike force, they tended not to have LLDB till the latter years when they started putting in people essentially as trainees. But now on the A team level, when you started out the A teams in full corps, you functioned as A team, you had counterparts. Then the counterparts drifted away as the camps took on specialized functions. I don't think at Tochow that you had LLDB. If they did,
No, we didn't. Like I mentioned the other day, early on at Tochow, one day, 2 young second lieutenant LLDB special forces guys came out, and they said they were directed to go out with us. So they went out with us. They didn't say a word, didn't do a thing, stayed very close with the Americans. The operation was over. They left and we never saw them again. That was the only time that LLDB went out with us. Then when we moved to Muckwa, the team that was there moved out to build a new camp because they gave us the camp. They left their LLDB behind. I guess the LLDB didn't want to go build a new camp. And we had a lot of friction with them, a lot of friction. In fact, Fassenheimer came into the camp one day with the C team LLDB commander, and he lined all of us up against the wall in the team house and chewed our asses out. And he relieved Nutilla, big Bill Nutilla, who was the acting team sergeant. The LLDB commander of the C team pointed to Nutilla and said, "I want that man out of fourth corps by sundown." And old Bill packed his bag and rode out on the helicopter when they left. I think he went to 2 corps. But eventually the LLDB left. I guess when the new camp was finished, they moved out. But while they remained there for a month, 2 or 3, I guess they thought they still ran the camp, but they didn't. And they would never interfere with the troops because they were afraid of the troops. We didn't interact with them, zero. We didn't ask them. But then we had a big incident with them where they turned off the power to outside the camp. And that caused a big problem. But anyway.
also, your troops, for the most part, were Cambodian. The LLDB were Vietnamese.
No, they liked the LLDB.
That was a problem.
In fact, when the 2 little lieutenants came out with us, the Cambos asked us, "You want us to kill them?" No.
Well, that was what usually happened if you sent an LLDB out to A404, the airboats. I don't think any of them ever survived. They all somehow got killed. But Nutilla's problem with the LLDB started at Kai on that border operation, that border incident where Einema got the CMH. Bill and I, well, it's a long story, but anyhow, he and I in particular got on the bad side of the LLDB that day. It was a camp revolt when we got back. And that day, Colonel Mullen from B-43 took Bill and I back to the B team. And after we ended up answering a bunch of questions to the State Department about the border incident, that's when we went to 402 and 403. And then I understood, and Bill, I think, told me that there was some gambling going on one night up there at Muckwa.
Yeah, I know that story.
And somehow it was an LLDB got killed and buried somewhere out on the end of the airfield.
The thing was, the troops were gambling. One of them was cheating, or two of them were cheating. The other Campbells wanted to kill him. So we took him under control. And that night, the troops, the Campbells, took the two Campbells out to the end of the runway, beat them to death with entrenching tools and buried them out there. And LLDB got wind of this, so they found out or whatever. That caused the big stink. And that's when Fastenheimer came out.
Well, what did Nutella have to do with that? Anything?
The acting team sergeant at the time.
All right, so.
So,
he-
you know,
The killing, what did he have to do with the killing?
no, he didn't even know about it. It was during the night after, midnight. The other Campbells took the two guys that were cheating out to the end of the runway. And the story was, we learned through the interpreter that they beat him to death, so they didn't have to fire any gunshots, and buried him. And Nutella was the acting team sergeant.
Okay,
He was also my roommate. And then I served with Bill again in Thailand. Bill told me when we were roommates, he says, you ought to put in to go to Thailand. You'll like it. It's just like Vietnam, but nobody's shooting at you. So I did. I put an ITT in for Thailand and I got it. He died, I'm going to say 20 years ago or more.
yeah, I was living here in Savannah and he had come up and lived with me for a little while. He was trying to find a war somewhere. And then he left my place here in Savannah and went up to Fort Bragg and still looking for a war. He was tending bar at one of those popular SF places. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, he opened up a bar, right?
No, that came later.
Oh, okay.
So he wasn't able to find a war to get involved in. So he went back to Florida, back down to their town was, I can't remember, near that college where he was retired as an ROTC instructor. And he opened up a bar down there. And then he somehow he got some kind of infection. And his wife took him to the hospital and the doctor said, we can't find anything wrong, and sent him back home. And he was in a huge amount of pain and he died in bed that night. And by the time I went down to the funeral, they still didn't know. I mean, the autopsy results weren't back yet, but they were suspecting blood poisoning.
Wow. We hung out some in Thailand also, because he came back to Thailand. We were out on an operation one time. We came across a big cache, very large, and we reported it. Next thing you know, NBC News is out there, elements from the C team, and Colonel Gerasi, I don't know if you know that name, Mal Ombre.
Yeah.
He was the commander of 44th Tactical Zone, which we came under. So he came over in a helicopter, giving orders, and meanwhile, we're just sitting there with all these people running around. I remember NBC News and other people. And Nutella got on the radio and said, who's running this gang fuck? And Gerasi said, who said that? Who said that? We laughed and laughed. The old Nutella. Yeah, he was my roommate.
Let me switch off here a little bit and ask Larry and Mike, since I haven't had anybody give an extended discussion of it. Talk about your role in the S5 shop, the role of the S5 on a Mike force. You were talking about an RD team.
Well, Mike can supplement this, and I can't remember how many times, how close we were together. That we did 2 or 3 things that were kind of noteworthy. I remember we had a housing area for our troops at Canto B40. They were basically like big barns with tin roofs. And we got permission to build another one. And the guy that was running our housing area, can't remember his name, but he was an old Cambodian. He didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Vietnamese or Cambodian. And the C4 engineers brought over several trucks of lumber, corrugated tin, cement, sand, odds and ends. And then naturally they brought over the biggest damn set of blueprints you ever saw in your life. It was almost like a book. Because as everybody knows, Army's got a blueprint for everything. If you want to build a privy, a 2-hole privy, 1-hole to 5-hole privy, they got blueprints for it. And they bought over blueprints to build dependent housing, another building for our dependents. And naturally, the Cambodian guy that was an old crusty Cambodian guy that was in charge, he couldn't read blueprints. And I will remember that I got a stick and drew a rectangle in the ground. And I pointed at the existing dependent housing area. And then I pointed at the pile of cement and tin and lumber. And I said, same. And he says, come bit, come bit. And by God, they built another one. I threw the plans away, but it's not rocket science, but they had a pile of sand, and they would dig a hole out in the middle and dump all the concrete in the middle of it and add water and start shoveling. And pretty soon they had a great big, huge pile of cement. That's how they made cement. I mean, they had no power tools. I'm not even sure they had a saw. I know they had hammers and so on and so forth, but what they ended up doing without the blueprints is building a housing area, a building for dependents, just as good as the other ones and so forth. We also, towards the end of my tour, we also got permission to build a school, kind of the same sort of deal. And I think I was leaving, I don't know whether Mike can supplement that or not, but we somehow got the money to hire a school teacher. So we had a school there for the dependents of our CIDG soldiers.
When was that?
That would have been in 70. No, before then. I got there, probably in the spring of 69 and left maybe late.
Yeah, because I worked, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I worked with that school teacher. I worked with that school teacher, and I also helped them raise catfish or some kind of fish in a little pond down below where they had some hogs, and all the hog crap went down into the pond. The fish loved it. Every now and then the troops would get out there with a net and scoop up all the fish that were in there. But I remember, one of the things I remember was that school teacher.
And I've always kind of wondered whether that school was still there. I'm sure it wasn't. We also would show movies. Phil or Philander or Mike, maybe you can supplement that. Over.
Well, I remember building the school. I remember that very well. I've got pictures of that school teacher too. Her husband was a Mike Force soldier. And I've got pictures of all the kids, on the first day of school when we opened it. They all had their little yellow and red kind of carry bags with their books and their papers and pencils and everything in it. The biggest smiles on their faces you'd ever see. And
when was that? I may have left and moved across the airfield because they found out I could read and write to the damn S1 shop. When did the school get fully ramped up?
Well, I think we started it toward the end of 69. And I know it was, some of it was, of the beginning was in the rainy season. Because the troops were out there and they had a deuce and a half that they got stuck in the mud, and they burnt the clutch out of it, trying to get it out of the mud. Well, Lieutenant Lytle grabbed me and we went over to the C team to get a 5-ton wrecker. And they said, well, you can't take a wrecker over there. And Lieutenant Lytle points at me and he says, he knows all about how to use a wrecker. So we got this 5-ton wrecker, went over there and hooked onto the 2.5, and we buried that wrecker in the mud. They had to get, what are those big bulldozers, a D10 or something? The biggest bulldozer they had to pull that wrecker out and then pull the 2.5 out of the mud.
And looking at the dates here, I think probably by the time the school was up and in operation, I had probably moved over to C4. But one of the other things I remember, and I don't think this is new to any of the rest of you. You go to the B40 camp with a wire around it, and you'd see the dependent housing area. You know, the alley just looked like damn barns. But you go across the wire to see where the Arvin lives. I mean, it was just a nightmare with pasteboard houses built out of C4 out of C ration boxes and so forth. I mean, just a world of difference between how our people lived and how the Arvin lived over.
Yep. Yeah, the dependent housing was out on the same side as the maintenance shed there.
Again, I don't remember those things, but I've got to leave you all in 15 minutes to go play tennis. But one of the things I tell a lot of people that I remember was, you know, whomever my troops were, the Cambodians were better than the Vietnamese, I thought, but I had a tough time getting them bata boots, and from our own supply. Digressing, when I went to graduate school, a guy named Tom Bata was in my graduate school section from Switzerland. He had come from Switzerland. Anyway, so I couldn't get bata boots that fit our guys. So I got my interpreter in a Jeep and I went downtown Canto to one of the markets, and they're selling bata boots out all over the place. And I told the interpreter to tell the mama-san selling the bata boots that we were going to take those bata boots because, you know, we need them. And she went, bah, 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 bah. And I just patted the 45 on my hip and said, we're taking those bata boots. And we took the bata boots. That was it. But I had extended, because I was commissioned on June 20th of 68, I would have gotten out of the Army June 20th of 70. I already knew I wanted to go to graduate school, and I would have spent all the money I'd saved up and not gotten a job during the summer. So I decided and my in-country date was February 5th, I think. So I figured I could extend for 6 months in Vietnam, get the 30-day leave or whatever it was. But it was, to me, unfortunately, it was things like that of our own people, Americans, not necessarily special forces people, but our own people doing stuff like that that just turned me off about the whole thing.
I did the same thing, extended to have a job during the summer. One of the others has nothing to do with S5. Always remember, first time I had lobster in my life was there, and looking at the S4, there was a guy named Snap. First Lieutenant Earl Snap was her S4, and I forget how, him and somebody else would get a 2.5, and Snap, who was a lieutenant, would put on Spec 4 insignia, and they would go to the Navy thing and go shopping and bring back all manner of things, and
we ate well those places.
Say again?
We ate well. We ate well.
Oh yes, I mean, hell, Sunday
Yep.
night was steak and turf. We had steak and lobster, and that's the first time in my life I ever had lobster. But Snap and the rest of the guys would go shopping at the Navy place, and then would trade. I mean, this is nothing to any of the rest of you, but trading weapons for good food and so on and so forth. Over.
That was Sergeant Marquez, the who ran the mess hall. He used to go with Captain Snap.
Yeah. And Snap, I always remember Snap. I showed the lieutenant here, but Snap would take off his insignia and put on Spec 4, and insignia, and then the enlisted guy would drive for the enlisted guy, and they go shopping at the Navy base. So,
Yep.
Did anybody else go to Fuquock Island for Operation on Fuquock?
No.
No,
No,
I didn't just dream that, did I, Steve?
That was,
Speaking of Marquez, do you
Oh,
remember
really?
the Hammer? Or Terry Fox, do you remember the NCO that Marquez used to hang out with that lived downtown?
Ibarra,
Who?
Sergeant Ibarra, Enrique Ibarra.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ibarra, but the other fellow that the one I'm trying to nail down his name.
Burns,
Who?
Burns.
Oh,
Burns, yeah,
Master
Frank
Sergeant
Burns?
Frank
Frank-
Burns.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, we had a discussion about him this morning. Yeah, he spent 5 years there, I think.
Yeah, well, anyhow, after the war, and Frank is leaving Vietnam and getting back to the States. To get Marquez over here, he adopted Marquez as his boy. And Marquez ended up working for this, it was a spook operation that the Army formed, military guys. Trying to think of the name of it. They exist. I think they're still in existence. But Marquez, and he didn't have any combat experience. He was terrified of doing anything, but he always carried a gun, and he was quick to pull that at the crap table when he got mad, down at the safe house. But somehow Marquez found his way into this spook outfit up there in DC. And the reason I know that is because one of the guys that I knew from the Trimac force that became a captain and was in that unit, and there was another fellow that I met. And they knew about Marquez and his background and everything, that he was nothing but a procurer and a moneymaker.
Yep.
Him and Burns.
Well, Burns, I think we called it the team house. We had a discussion about it this morning on
the team house.
the A teams, but Burns had the team house downtown. And as I recall, and it was confirmed this morning, Rasmussen, Lieutenant Rasmussen was the team commander.
Rasman, not Rasmussen.
And got in a pissing contest with Burns, and I think Burns got out of the Army. But I believe Burns had extended a number of times. My recollection is, Steve will correct me, Burns had like 5 years there, but he was making enough money off the team house. I think it seems like he had 18 years in. And I think he left or retired or quit the Army and just went downtown and ran the team house. And as I said this morning, or earlier today, I always wondered what happened to him after the country fell. Over.
Phil, before you disappear, just a side note of the small world. You were class of 72 at Section F. I was 73, Section E.
Really?
And we're a bunch of us from that school. Anyway, Larry, you mentioned earlier about a motivation team.
I'm not sure I can add too much. We called it a capo squad. Mike and I were in charge of it. I can't remember what all the hell they did. They did a little bit of everything. They were all fine people, but they weren't all that motivated. They would help run motion picture projectors because we'd run movies. The SIDG. I can't remember what else they did. I don't recall too much. Mike, can you supplement that?
Well, they help pass out all the school supplies to the kids when we opened the school. Other than that, I don't remember too much of what they did. I have some pictures of them because there was one of them that spoke English very well, and So we almost never needed an interpreter because one of the core group there was very fluent in English.
And candidly, I don't remember them doing too much, but maybe that's because of my age. And of course, we were in charge of several A teams under us, some at remote sites. And seemed like from time to time, they might have gone out to those places, but candidly, I can't remember them doing a whole hell of a lot.
Some of the other squads had people like singers in the squad, musicians. Did your squad do that?
Can't remember it.
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Other functions would have been psyops.
Yeah. But I still don't remember them being a real resource for us. And maybe that's an indictment of me of not finding anything for them to do.
No, not for the team, not for the motivational team, but you had a PSYOP battalion in each core area, and they prepared leaflets or other materials or overflights on demand from the unit. So if B40 was asking for something, they would have gone to the PSYOP unit for whatever.
And if we worked with them, I have no recollection of it. Over.
The only thing I recall is I went out. What's the little single engine aircraft that the
01.
The 01. I went out in one of those where you sit behind the pilot, and we dropped leaflets over New Koto. The Chuhoi program. I don't think we ever had. No, we did have one guy who abandoned the VC and came over to us, because I remember sitting on the sandbags there at Stainless Steel and giving him a can of beer, and he was telling us, he was pointing at the mountain, and he says, now over there is this, and over here is this. And he was just drinking beer and showing us where all the VC strongholds were.
Well, there's a story about Baswai, about a fairly successful operation they did, having the son of one of the officers on New Koto living in the village.
I remember him well. He was kind of a mascot there, as I recall, before I got, because I was at Baswai, that was the new A421. I remember him living with us, and it seemed like, I don't know whether he'd been kidnapped, but he was, the son of one of the, seemed like a lieutenant colonel in the VC. And he was, I have pictures of him, but I forgot what we called him, but he had a nickname.
Well, you mentioned the word pictures. What I'd like to do here is to remind everybody that they should go to this website I've got and sign up. Share the screen. Here, share. All right. SpecialForcesPhotos.com. You sign in with your whole name. Please put on your whole name, because the users I get, like this one here, for example, well, that I don't know, but it is a Russian address over here. This one here is basically a porn site. I'll call you back.
Is that on Radix Press?
That's SpecialForcesPhotos.com.
All right.
Okay, sign up. Hello. Excuse me for a minute. Bye. Okay, sign up here. Use your whole name to sign up. When you do sign up, I turn on the little yellow light here. You're then approved to load up pictures. If I don't recognize your name, when I get a chance, I'll dump you. this guy over here, yes, that's his email. I recognize it. I probably care who it is, but I'm going to tell him to sign in again under his whole name. So you go to the album list once you're approved, once you got that little yellow light bulb, and you can go albums for every camp in Vietnam.
Wow.
And then you can go for aid attachments under B40, for example. And you can add pictures to it.
I've seen that picture before on Facebook.
Well, very possibly. Because, you know, all different people have the pictures so they can send it out. But you go there and you upload your picture by yourself. You don't need me to help you. And you put your caption on it as you want. Somebody else who comes by can say, I'm the third guy from the left, and he can add to your caption. So this is something that I don't have to do hands-on work on every single picture. You know, if you need help, call me. But basically, you can put your own pictures up there and share them with everybody.
Stephen, I'm going to leave you all now. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry to have to go, but
Okay, well,
committed to some other
we'll see if I can find out about the geese.
all right. Well, I'll get back with you and maybe look at the camp pictures too, and I might recognize something.
Okay, take care.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
You mentioned Boswai and the LLDB. One of my, I spent like 4 months there after I left C4. And Boswai, if folks don't know, is a camp around like a 50-meter high hill, which is about half a mile from a major mountain of 7 mountains area, I think Nui Jai, as I recall. And we always had, there was a mortar training site on Nui Jai, and about every other day we get 3 incoming mortar shells. And I'll never forget the A camp was the A team house was such that we could see Nui Jai, but the Vietnamese, the LLDB, had their team house on the other side of the small hill or knoll inside of the Boswai camp, and they couldn't see Nui Jai. So they thought they were safe, and all of their structures were basically 10 barns, no bunker, no sandbags or anything. And they didn't understand indirect fire. And I remember not too long before I left, the VC sent 3 mortar rounds over that little hill, landed square ass in the middle of the LLDB area where the LLDB were, went through their 10 barns and so forth. And I think it got like shit half, the upper left-hand corner. No, that's not correct. Yeah, there you have a picture of where camp was. But the incoming mortar rounds injured 6 or 8 of the LLDB members, and I don't know how many of them died. Probably about half of them died. But obviously, at that point, the LLDB understood indirect fire, and they started filling sandbags and reinforcing their area just like you couldn't believe. So that, I mean, some of the people were talking about the bad experiences with LLDB. I don't know that our experiences were bad or good, but they learned about indirect fire because of what happened that night. Over.
I've seen a picture of that camp. I have a friend that was there with that hill right in the middle of camp.
Yeah, there. If you Google Boswai, there actually is a film without sound showing that camp from above with helicopters showing during the rainy season, and then it scans in to show you the camp from up above, because all the pictures, the moving picture apparently was taken from a helicopter, and then some operations. So you can find that just by Googling Boswai. Over. I will remember, I don't want to bore everybody. I don't have any real good war stories, but I remember I'd been there a few days. And the first kind of operation I went on, if you want to call it that, we got word that there was a mine in the middle of the field. And I was with some E6 because I was a brand new lieutenant and didn't know squat. So we took half a dozen people out, and we actually had a TV crew there. Half a dozen people out, a couple of clicks to clear the road to see if there in fact was a mine in the road, and I don't think there was. And after it was over with, it's time to go back to the base. Everybody started flagging down scooters and motorcycles and giving people like, 10 piastres. And I remember riding back from my first combat operation on the back of a Honda motorcycle. And they didn't train us about that in
Is it
Fort
about
Bragg.
Swai?
What?
Was this about Swai?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the first operation I went on, and it came back on the back of a Honda motorcycle. Saw nothing. There was, like I say, it seemed like there were a couple of TV cameramen that came along with us. Over.
Nobody was around as they can't close out the B-40 Mike Force. Is that
No,
correct?
I left in February of 70, and I think it was 4 or 5 months later they closed it out.
Yeah, I'm putting that in the timing on it because I think that you really were really dependent on Cambodian troops in the Mike Force. You had
Yes.
some Vietnamese, but by May of 70, you were then shipping those Cambodians into Cambodia, or May, June of 70. So that you
We
were
weren't
probably good
shipping
enough
them. We
to,
weren't shipping them. They were leaving and going on their own.
it was actually an organized program. I had somebody in the last session telling me that he was there with a fellow by the name of Chow Nari, and they were paying off villagers. They were giving them money, they giving them uniforms, shipping whole villages off to Cambodia. And my Cambodian friend that I spoke to says that's a woman's name, so there's something wrong with the name.
Do you remember our main interpreter at 403? My recollection is that he was somewhat connected and took off in the spring of 70, heading for Cambodia, and he became a powerful guy in the regime there. What was it, Pol Pot and the regime?
He went with Paul Potter with Lon Nol.
Well,
Lon Nol
I
was
thought
upside. Paul Pot
it
was
could have
the other.
been Lon Nol, but Tom, do you remember the interpreter's name?
Short fella. And
Yeah.
We paid him
Peanut. Was that Peanut?
no, Peanut was Don Foot.
Well, he was also with Lieutenant Snap in S4.
Well, that was B-40. That wasn't a Mike Force battalion.
No, that was at B-40. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other interpreter name that I remember was Lee Van.
That
He
name was
was-
a little familiar too, but my recollection is we had one main interpreter. He was the absolute best. And one day he was there and the next day he was gone. And rumor was that he became a muckety muck in the Cambodian uprising.
Ah,
I can't remember his name, but he was the best English speaking interpreter that I remember, but he was he acted more like our Indige battalion commander. In the field, he had a particular company that he was with, and that was the 45th Company, Curly Lyons' company, if you remember.
Yep.
All right, but I can't remember the interpreter's name.
Tommy, you just gave me a label for one of the companies. Out of what? Out of 403 or where?
Yeah, 403. These like the 45th company, that was a Vietnamese designation for that company. 45th.
Okay, but so it was the third. It was the 3rd Battalion of the Mike Force.
Right?
It was from 403, and the company number was 45. What were the other company numbers at that camp?
44 company.
Okay, was that
That was exclusively Cambodian, and we had about 3 squads of mountain yards in that company. And then I mentioned the 45th company, that was also exclusively Cambodian. And then we were saddled, since we were co-located with the B team and we were in Canton, we were saddled with the 51st company, which was exclusively Vietnamese. And that was the one that LLDB grafted from.
Yep.
They got a little bit of money from each one of those soldiers' paychecks. But as the year wore on, we were able to we were able to get the 51st company from under the control of the LLDB for the most part. And we had a couple good Americans running it. That was Melvin Morris's company. And Ben Lyons was Melvin Morris with that company.
Yeah. John Roberts was before Morris with 51st Company. And the LLDB XO used to sit at the end of the line there on payday upstairs and take his cut of every soldier's pay. And that was Lieutenant Chu. And I asked somebody, what's he doing? Oh, he's just taking his cut of their monthly pay. And so I did an investigation. I sent it up to Nha Trang, and I got a message back from a colonel in Nha Trang very clearly saying, you will not investigate corruption in the LLDB. And I still have the file here at my house on Lieutenant Chu.
Yeah, that was the 51st company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had the red scars. 44th company had the purple scars, and 45th company had the blue.
Yeah, I was when I first got to 403, I was with 51st Company with Sergeant Roberts. He was from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Was he? Had he been did he have a recon squad before that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Also, Lieutenant Thrasher was the CO.
Mm-hmm.
Max Thrasher.
Yeah, I knew him at Bragg.
Does
Yeah,
anybody else have some numbered companies that they can identify?
Pardon me?
Tommy, you just identified 3 numbered companies. Is there anybody else here that can put numbers on a company on one battalion or another? Jay, did you have numbered companies?
No. Actually, I got to B40 in late in 1969, and I was there for a short time in the radio room, and that's where I learned my craft from guys like Carl Wagner and Don Stebbins and Sergeant Hayakawa. And let's see, there was another
Prendergast was there.
Stinston, and Prendergast was there.
Bernard.
And, Mike Hammers. I would have never recognized you in a million years. I swear I don't. But you know what? I don't know if you can see my picture or, you know, my face through this thing, but if you can, I'm going to hold something up here. And can you see
Oh, yeah.
what I'm, can you see that?
I can see that. Yes.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, bud. That's the B40 radio room.
Yep.
And that was a guitar that someone had left there. And, I tried to learn how to play it, and it looks like you were playing it. So anyway, I'm glad I got a chance to say something here because, I thought that was you. And
Yep.
yeah, you look quite a bit different. And this thing here actually has the hair on it.
And it was dark.
Yes, it was. So anyway, sir, I hope you're doing well and you look well and sound very good. And all you fellows out there I've just been sitting here in awe of the stories that I've been hearing. And, after I left B40, I went out to A402 and was out there, for the Cambodian turnover and all that kind of stuff. So, it was quite an interesting time at 402 and just in the whole Delta for the SF because it wasn't too long after that we all just were gone from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel so very fortunate to have been able to have experienced the SF and the men that I've met. I'll never forget.
That's right. Yeah.
Amen.
Wonderful people. So,
Hey,
I'm
Mike.
sorry.
Mike, you
Yes.
said the name John Roberts. Was he at Muckwa in the spring of '68 for a short time? Would it be the same guy?
Maybe. I didn't get to Canto until July of '68, and he was there then because he took me under his wing.
Was he sort of a big guy?
Yes.
I think he was at Muckwa in the spring of '68, but for a short time. He was not liked at all. And I sort of think he was asked to leave or told to leave or did leave. Sort of a character.
He was a character. He enjoyed carrying a shotgun. And he used to tell the troops, he'd point to that and he'd say, same Claymore.
I went out with him a number of times, but he was only there like 2 months maybe. He wouldn't take a shower right away after he came back in. And that was sort of odd. Where, you want to take a shower as soon as you can. And he was a hard charger in the field. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But he also liked to put himself in for awards. I verified this through Steve from the CD. An action that we went on. Okay, it was an Eagle flight. It was 2 Americans with a platoon, and I was another American with a platoon. And they came in to help us because we got shot up. And next thing I know, I hear that both 2 Americans got an award, a Silver Star. And I asked Steve about it. He looked it up on the CD, and it was from that date that they got the Silver Star. So I think they put themselves in for an award. I think he had a reputation for that.
The Johnny Roberts I have was at 402 in April of '68.
That's him.
SFC.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's him. I'll tell you why,
Yep.
because it was an Eagle flight, and it was the first Eagle flight that 402 got. And I got the first Eagle flight with a guy named John Campbell, a medic. And he got shot 11 times. And they brought Roberts in with another American, Fielder, Don Fielder. And then they brought in a 3rd platoon to get us out. But Roberts and Fielder got Silver Stars for that operation. And when I read the narrative that Steve brought up, I said, oh, wait a minute, I was there, and I was really, sort of saddened that he would do that.
I heard that Roberts ended up with 10 silver stars.
No.
Oh, my
nobody-
goodness.
I don't,
Nobody had.
no
10.
way, no way. Yeah, Roberts liked to put himself in for awards. He was sort of a nutty guy. Like I said, we'd come in from an operation, you know, and you'd want to take a shower as quickly as you got a chance, you know. But he'd go, you know, into the next day without taking a shower and dirty, you know. That was odd.
Yep. And he'd tie a bandana around his
Yeah,
forehead.
yeah,
Yep.
But he was a hard charger in the field.
Yep. I've got one picture of him in the mess hall. I'll try to get that on Steve's website here.
He was not well liked when he was at 402. I mean, he wasn't crazy, but see, he more than once, at least once that I'm aware of, he asked the guy in the field with him, said, listen, you write me up, I'll write you up. And the other guy, who was a friend of mine, came to us and said that Robert proposed this. And we said, well, you do what you want to do, you know, I mean, you're a man, you know, you do what you want to do. And lo and behold, they both got silver stars. Pissed me off.
Roberts has got 2 silver stars.
Huh?
He got 2 silver stars,
Silver stars?
and about 6 Purple Hearts.
Wow.
Right. He went on, I don't know whether before, but certainly after. Afterward, he went on to SOG, where he got a couple of these Purple Hearts.
Oh.
And he also was at B-52 for a while.
Yeah, I heard he's up in 2 Corps.
Nutella worked with him at SOG.
With Roberts?
Yeah, they ended up on the same team because they're both big guys, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, maybe one could carry the other if you had to, whereas you put a huge guy with a little scrawny one, you know, it's you're asking for trouble there if the big guy gets wounded. But Newt said he did not do well up there at all. He went in the field with him a few times, and as soon as he hit the ground, he's hollering prairie fire.
Yeah, the troops, the Americans sort of shied away from him, you know. Anyway, but he was notorious for that. You know, you write me up, I'll write you up.
Now, let me follow up on that earlier question. Anybody beside Tommy Dangle work with numbered companies?
Anybody what?
Work with numbered companies. Tommy's talking about 44th, 45th, and 51st.
I remember the 41st company and the 42nd.
Out of where?
Mukwa with the, you know, 2nd Battalion.
That's
Yeah.
that's also 403?
No.
402.
402.
Okay. So
I
41st and 42nd.
Yeah, I definitely remember 41. And not that I was associated with the company. I don't know, when we went to the field, you know, it's not like I said, like the 2 Corps Mike Force, where the Americans were permanently assigned to the company, and that's the only company you work with.
Yeah.
It didn't seem that way in 4th Corps.
Were
But
both of these 2 companies Cambodian?
Oh, yeah, in 4th Corps, yeah.
And
100% Cambodian.
did they have distinctive color scarves?
Yeah, I think we did.
But you don't remember which is which.
No, I remember from 2 Corps.
No, that's a different corps.
No, I sort of remember scarves in 4th Corps, sort of remember.
I still have my scarf, black and white, with skull and crossbones and MF underneath.
I've seen those scarves.
And Mike, what is that from a specific company or what?
You know, I don't remember if that was a company or if a bunch of us just had those made up.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
The reason the companies had different colored scarves was in the field. not so much with fourth corps, but in two corps, when the battalion was out, so you could identify in the middle of a big firefight, you could identify, okay, what company this is, I don't sort of remember that as much at fourth corps, but I sort of think I do.
Well, we
Yeah.
did it in the 3rd Battalion, A403. Now, Steve, if this is real important to you,
Huh?
Steve, if these numbers of companies is real important to you, I can put you in touch with the Cambodian that it started at Don Foot when he was about 14 years old. And he stayed with the Mike forces until they were turned over. And then he went to Cambodia. And then he got out and he got to the US. He's in California.
We should have had him at all these meetings.
Now he started that Facebook page on 4th Mike Force.
There's a guy on Facebook that posts pictures sometime, and I'm friends with him, I'm pretty sure, that was at Don Fook in the Mike Force. And he went, I think he was all over fourth corps with the Mike Force, meaning like 401, 403.
Yeah.
And if I hear the name, I might remember it. And I'm pretty sure I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Does he call you every now and then?
Huh?
Does he call you on the phone every now and then?
I've only communicated with him on Facebook, private message, PM.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll post the picture, and on a non-vetted SF site, he'll comment sometimes. Yeah, he was all over the Mike Force in fourth corps. And he got pictures of him of a very young man in fourth corps on the Mike Force.
Well, I'd like to hear from him because I think it would be interesting to have that information documented. Because I haven't found it anywhere else.
I can PM him and ask him, I know he was a Don Foot.
Well, is this the Cambodian that Tommy's talking about?
I don't know if it's the same one.
Is this
Probably the
Cambodian?
same one. I'm trying to find his name.
If I hear the name, I might remember it.
If he's Cambodian, there aren't a lot of Cambodians with Mike Force Facebook pages. So it's probably the same one.
Yeah, look up 4th Mike Force, Foco Mike Force, Mobile Strike Force on Facebook, and it'll come up.
Okay, well, I'd have a rough time with Facebook.
Yeah, the Mike Force Association has a website, a Facebook page. It's not very active at all. Don Blue is on the cover picture. But it's not active at all.
Yeah, I could get Bob Gilstrap to answer his phone. So, as far as I know, there hasn't been much on the mic.
I'll go ahead and PM him if I remember and ask him what he remembered the numbers of the companies. I distinctly remember the 41 company and the 42 at Tocho. But it wasn't like they were my company. They seem to exist, and if I'm going to the field, okay, this company's going with you.
No, the numbers make the company, they're consistently, there are patterns in the way the numbers are done, especially in special forces. And if I can determine those patterns, it gives me some information on the organization.
Okay, the name of the guy that his name is in the US now, it was different. He changed his name when he got to the States, but it's Vila Chow.
Yeah, I think that's him.
I've got his biography here.
Okay, well, ask him again.
What is that? What is the website again?
Well, it's on Facebook. It's 4th Mike Force History, I think is the name of the page. And his picture's on there.
Yeah, he posts on there. Yeah,
Well,
Villa Chow is his name.
he started that whole Facebook page. He's pretty proficient with the computer and all.
Yeah, more so than I am. See, in 2-core, I had the 242 company. 2 for the corps, 4 for the battalion, and 2 for the second company.
Right.
I don't know if it was that way in 4th Corps. Like, what was the 41st company? Okay, maybe 4 for 4th Corps, and then the 1. But in 2 Corps, we all the companies had 3 numbers.
Yeah.
And I had 242. 2 Corps, 4th Battalion, 2nd Company. And you could almost identify from the company what the team was because of the battalion. The 4th Battalion was A204. And anybody on A203 would be 3rd Battalion, would have the number 3. Anyway.
In 4 Corps, there was no such order. I think
Okay.
it may have been chronological when the companies were formed, but there doesn't seem to be a pattern of the numerical designations for the companies.
I would imagine the 4 was for the corps. And then the company, like a 1 was the first company or something.
Well, if
Maybe.
you got the numbers strictly out of 702 and 703, 402 and 403. So there's a sequence, and I don't know when you picked up 51st Company, but that's obviously a later number. So, as I said, if we can get a bunch of it together, it might start making sense.
Well, there was a time in A403 when an entire company came to 403 when they closed the camp up at Fubai. And an entire company came to 403 and they liked calling themselves Nungs, but they were mostly just of Chinese descent. They weren't true Hmongs or Nungs, I forget pronunciation.
They
But
came from Fubai.
when they closed Fubai, 403 got a whole company of strikers.
Yeah, but there was a Cambodian company that was bounced around out of Fubai.
Now there was 123 of them that came down on 123s or 130s. Now what happened at Fubai, as they told me, they said, "We having trouble with these guys and we shit canning them. Do you want them?" And at that time we were recruiting troops off the street, and a week later they were fighting. There was no training them. I mean, that's what that meat grinder at New Koto was causing that. So I said, "Yeah, send them on down. I'll take them." And they became the 44th Company. And they were mostly Cambodians, but there was about 2 squads in there of mountain yards.
All the way down to 4th Corps, huh?
Well, they came from I Corps.
Oh, okay.
See? And they were pretty good troops. Hagen and who was his other buddy? Scarface
Morgan.
Jack
Morgan. Dirty
Yeah.
Jack Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan and Hagen had that company
Yep.
when they got down there. And right away they went out to New Koto and they were fighting.
I think Don Fook had some Nungs. I think, I don't know. It seems to me that they did.
I thought y'all had a whole company of none.
Not at 402 or 403.
No, I'm talking about 401. Don
Yeah,
Fook.
401, it might have been a whole company. I know they had Nungs.
Yeah, at Fubai, they had what they call the Cambodian Battalion of Red Devils. And that was a bunch that was shipped out.
Steve, I gotta interrupt you for a minute. Guys, I'm turning into a pumpkin. It's been a real pleasure. and I really enjoyed meeting seeing some of you again, and I appreciate your efforts, Steve. Tom, I'm going to email you and we're going to get in touch.
Okay,
Guys, thank you very much. Steve, you're one in a million. I really appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank
So,
you.
thanks,
Now, Terry,
guys.
Terry,
Yes.
my email address, I changed domains.
I have
I'm now,
KOUPREY@Comcast.net.
yeah, you got it, Comcast.
Okay, I'll be in touch. Guys,
All right.
thank you very much. Thanks for your service, everyone.
See ya.
Take care.
So
Jay, where do you live now, Jay?
I live in Virginia in a place called Hopewell, and it's about 20 couple miles southeast of Richmond. And I've
Oh.
been here for almost 30 years, I suppose, and been retired for quite a while, and spend more time than I would care to talk about at the VA hospital, because of various things that happen, over the course of time and this and that. But I get up every day with a positive attitude and look forward to every day. And I'm hoping that something is going to happen in our country to turn things around so that we become a country once again, instead of just a big hate fest that seems to be going on. At least it seems that way to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, man, it's really great to see you and all you fellas. And I would say, if we do this again, please let me know. And if you're back east in Virginia and this and that, please give me a call and come to see me. Speaking of which, what is your email address, Mike?
It's KIDD65
Okay.
at cablespeed.com.
Cable speed. Okay, that sounds
Cable speed. Yeah.
kind of fast.
Yeah, I live right next door to you. I'm 50 miles west of Seattle.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go for a walk here shortly, and I'll just swing on by. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's good talking with you, sir.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Yes, and Steve Sherman, a big thank you. He has done marvelous work here. Yes, he has.
It is truly amazing.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm going to look forward to talking to you again sometime on this Zoom feature. And if you're bored to death and this and that, give me a call.
All right.
Anytime. Yes, sir. Okay.
You've all got the emails from the other names that were on the list. That's your team. And you can host your own Zoom meeting for up to 40 minutes for free. Anytime you
Yes,
want.
sir.
So whether
Yes, sir.
it's 1-on-1 or 1-on-20, go for it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm real excited just to know that everybody's still around and doing well. Thanks
Good to
again,
see you.
Steve. Yes.
Steve,
Right.
I'm looking at the address card for Vila Chow. And in the Facebook, after facebook.com, he's got /4Corps Mike Force History.
Okay, well, I've written that down.
All right, you want me to send you his phone numbers and email
Phone
address?
numbers much better. I can deal with phone numbers much easier than I can deal with Facebook.
All right.
If I knew how to do Facebook, I could have found even more people because they're out there on Facebook. But I go there to the website to see all these pictures, and I can't figure out how to talk to them. I leave them a message, and I never hear anything.
Okay, Vila Chow's mobile phone number is 916-450.
Hold on. Gotta find a pen that works. 916-450-0967.
0967.
Okay.
Now, landline I had on him previously is 209-471-7047.
Okay.
Now, he talks with Don Blue every now and then.
Contact everybody.
Couple of the guys, but he calls me about every other month just to say hello and so forth. But he's a good man.
Well, the only thing disappointing on these sessions that I've been doing for the last couple of months is that there are a lot more engaged that we could have gotten involved, and a higher percentage of the people who's on the email list that I should have gotten involved. The ones who missed these things, like there are probably 40 names on the email I sent out for B40, and we're down now, to under 10 that showed up today. That's too bad, because they missed a good session, and I'm sure they had things to contribute. You guys did a great job of fleshing out the history of B40. But if we had 30 more people, think of how much more we could have done.
Yeah.
What I remember about B40, that originally the B team was at Don Fuch. And then it went to Canto.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And when the guerrilla force converted to Mike Force, Marichek was the commander, but he left real quick, like, for whatever. I think he just ETS or PCS, whatever. But then I became aware that B40 was in Canto and 403 had gone to Canto. And that was around the end of February of 68.
Yeah. I have around March of 68, the camp was established at Canto. Prior to that, it was A430, and that was Don Fuch.
And then another commander was, I think, right after Marichek, Schoenberg.
Yeah, Schonberg was killed up in another assignment, I think 101st or something.
But he eventually became the commander of B40 or the Mike Force.
He was the Mike Force commander after Marichek.
After Marichek.
Yeah.
And then he left, and I forget who took over.
Anderson and then Top.
That name I remember, but I don't know if I met him or knew him.
Who, Anderson or Top?
Well, I left in July of 68, or actually August 68. And it was the two names you just said, one or the other was the commander. But I never saw him.
Anderson was the commander. Top followed him about just after you left.
But I don't think I ever met him. I never went to the B team.
I don't know. I think he was there. I think he was on Fuquoc prior to that time. He ran the operations that cleared out Fuquoc.
What was the other name you said besides Top?
Anderson.
All right, that name sort of rings a bell.
And then you got this guy, 3-day wonder named Quist. And then Dubovik came in, and he stayed for a while.
I mentioned yesterday or the other day that when I PCS'd, I don't remember even going to the B team, but somebody said, well, you might have left through the C team, but I don't know, I mean, B40 was my next higher, organization.
Yeah, but they were co-located. They were co-located in Canto, so depending on which side of the runway you turn to when you get off the chopper.
Well, B40's permanent camp was built on the opposite side of the airfield from C4.
Right. But when he processed out from an A team, from a battalion, he thought that he didn't know whether he processed out through B40 or directly from C4. And
I
that's
should have processed through the B team, right?
not necessarily.
Uh,
They didn't have that much administrative capability. They're pretty thin B team.
The C4 had it all. Only S1 stuff. That
Yeah.
was at C4.
When I got to Company D, well, there was no B40. And I had to go see the Sergeant Major to get my assignment. And he said, okay, you're going to the guerrilla force. Yeah, there was no B team. And there was a bit of, okay, 4-2 and 4-3 were the guerrilla, and 4-1 was the Mike force. Although we all knew each other, were friends, there was sort of like a little competition. And we didn't like Marichek. I don't know for what reason. Because I wouldn't have a reason, but some of the guys that were there longer than me didn't care for Marichek. They thought he was too flamboyant.
Well, the story Clyde Sincere told me was that Kelly came in country from Okinawa and he said, I want a mobile guerrilla force. And he said, I'm going to take Marichek from 4 Corps. I'm going to take Bo Greitz for 3 Corps. And I got 2 guys in 2 Corps, since Clyde Sincere and Jules Bonavalenta. But you're both in 2 Corps, so you draw straws. Bonavalenta got the short straw and ended up in I Corps. But those were the 4 people that had made a sufficient mark on their operations to get the attention of the new group commander to form this mobile guerrilla force and ultimately to run the Mike forces in those areas. Each Mike force has its own history, its own origin. So each one was different in the way it formed up. But it's all part of the overall narrative. And each one was an experiment in its own way.
You know, towards the, when Vietnamization actually started happening, it was talked about in '68, but it didn't start really happening towards the end of '69. But there was a period of time there when the decision was made that American troops were going to come home, conventional American infantry, conventional troops were going to come home. And from what I understand, when a major operation came up, the commander of that American unit, be it the 173rd, the 1st Cav, 9th Infantry Division, or whatever, they were given a choice whether or not they wanted to run that operation. And they were offered, 173rd now, was offered Nui Koto Mountain. Now, Curly Lyons, who came to the 4th Mike Force, A403, had been in the 173rd. And he was on that advance party that came down to look at Nui Koto to decide whether or not the 173rd wanted to take it on. And American commanders could turn down operations. The operations they turned down fell on the Mike forces. And it was especially so up in 2 Corps, where y'all had huge number of battalions. I mean, all of the big assaults, and all the corps were turned over to Mike forces. And when the American troops were standing down, the period of about 2 years there that the Mike force fucking had the thumb in the dike.
Yeah, I know that in 2 Corps in April of 1970, when they put the siege on Da Xiang, there was about 2, if not 3 regiments of NVA artillery battalions. And we talked about that the Americans are not going to come up here and help us. It was going to be strictly Mike force and Arvins. But the Arvins got their ass kicked every time they went in. But I remember that came up, the Americans don't want to come up here, or because of Vietnamization, And this was in April of 70.
Well,
And it was all also to minimize American casualties,
Yeah,
you know.
and there was a lot of NVA up there at Daxiang.
it was the Tet Offensive in '68 in 2 Corps was really the point in which the Mike forces became a significant element there. And the A teams sent companies to different cities like Baulock and defended those cities, Baulock, a lot of little towns. But throughout 2 Corps, it was the Mike Force and the CIDG that saved everything. In Pleiku City, it was the Mike Force. In Khartoum, there was no Mike Force. You did it all by yourself. A lot of ammunition expended out of that MACV headquarter compound, and you ended up building a wall of dead bodies between you and the missionary house. But in other places, Quinyon, they happened to have the whole a closed CIDG camp. All of the CIDG were in Quinyon just before the Tet Offensive, and they mobilized that to fight in the city, and it worked out surprisingly well. They kept the Mike Force around for a little bit, did a couple of operations, and decided they no longer needed it, so they sent it out to Khartoum. Bami Tut formed up a Mike Force. So you ended up having this very large organization under demand from everybody. The First Field Force, 173rd, 4th Infantry Division, 101st, all asking for support from this Mike Force unit that had sort of proven itself in the Tet Offensive. Your other core areas, there weren't supposed to be any American troops down in the Delta. Anybody who was that frustrated that they offered the Nui Koto to the 173rd really had to, that would have been very unusual because there was nobody else operating in the core area. And I would just be surprised that they actually would use them there.
Well, the 173rd, that advanced party, I'm almost certain that came about. Remember when MACV in Saigon said, "We're going to get Nui Koto Mountain. We're tired of fucking around." And SF, 5th Group, said, "Let us handle it." And that was the largest special forces operation theretofore, and involving B-55, the 4th Mike Force. We had 2 American artillery batteries from the 9th U.S. Division, and it was decided whatever was required, Nui Koto Mountain is going to be ours. And B-55 got the rock pile, and the rest of it's history. The VC faded out, you know, but they were eventually they would come back. But it was in the run up to that operation that the 173rd was offered, you know, do you want this or not? And
well, the 173rd really had been sort of an emergency stopgap everywhere since they came in country in '65. And what Nixon took over in '69, you know, they didn't like the term de-Americanization, so they came up with Vietnamization. But his program was to pull American troops out as rapidly as possible. And what came at the same time as that is that they began to turn over M16s to the Vietnamese, which was something that they really had to do. They were actually starting to do that in late '68. The Mike forces in 68, however, I think already had M16s.
Not in fourth corps,
Well, in 2 Corps.
2 corps, yeah.
So that process made a big change in the South Vietnamese army. Remember that the communists were using AK-47s, and compared to an M1, AK-47 was a little bit more firepower, a lot more firepower. So giving the CIDG and the Rough Puffs M16s changed the balance there. The Americans had to do something about getting out of Vietnam. That's what they planned to do. But the biggest thing was that I felt in my looking back at the history is, first of all, I cannot find any indication that any American knew in advance that anything was going to happen in Cambodia in 1970. That all the people who said, "Oh, the CIA overthrew Sihanouk," no, they didn't. I'm pretty sure that Sihanouk told Lon Nol, "I'm going to go to Paris or to France to take the cure. You take over the country. Let the Americans come in, do what they want. Kick the North Vietnamese out of my country. I'll come back and take over and be a hero." And he'd done that before with the French. That was Sihanouk's method of operation. Unfortunately, Nixon didn't get the word, because he didn't go out and tell Nixon, "We want you to come in here." He just left it up to Nixon to do something. Nixon had no plan for Cambodia. He asked Abrams, and Abrams said, "Well, I got an old dusty plan here about attacking bases across the border." Okay, we'll do that. But Congress was on Nixon's back even then, saying, "You can't go to Cambodia. You're expanding the war." What the hell is expanding the war when you got 100,000 enemy troops in Cambodia? How are you expanding the war? I don't know. But that's the way the students saw it. And protests, and finally Kent State really put the kibosh on that. Now, if at that time there were enough forces in Vietnam and they were doing so well, they could have just plowed through Cambodia all the way up to Thailand and the Lao border and just run the NVA out of it entirely. And when the NVA lost Sihanoukville, they lost the southern tip of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the entry of goods from the south. So one of the areas where we lost a possibility was not staying the course in Cambodia. Had we done what Sihanouk had hoped we would have done, we would really mop things up pretty well. Anyway, that's my thesis, and I'm sticking to it.
You know, one of the big drivers for the recruitment tools for the Khmer Rouge was all the bombing that we did in Cambodia. Because I've spent a lot of time, 20-something years, running my NGO there from 99 to 2019. And I talked to the old people all the time, and they'd say, you know, we fought for the Khmer Rouge because, you know, the American bombing just, you know, we had no choice.
Well, it was very easy to convince somebody who was being bombed that it was not in their best interest to help the people who were bombing them. In Vietnam, Vietnamese didn't really understand anything about communism. You know, they're just more Vietnamese. So until the Way, they saw what happened in the Way, they were not really very enthusiastic about doing anything. After Way, they sort of got it in their mind that they could end up being buried alive. So they participated. the Khmer Rouge were nothing until they were reorganized or supported by the North Vietnamese, who were fighting the South Vietnamese and the Americans. So they figured they better help the Khmer Rouge do something at that time. Khmer Rouge were nothing at that point.
Yeah.
But the NVA gave them all the weapons that they wanted because the Americans were going to take them away anyway.
Yeah.
So, but they were not a powerful force. We started bombing in Cambodia in 69 under the menu bombings, and basically Sihanouk had acquiesced to that, and maybe it was even his idea. He was having a lot of trouble having all of these communists, all these North Vietnamese in his country. They were running about half the country. So he wasn't happy about it. So he said, we could bomb, but not as long as we didn't kill any Cambodians, we could bomb all we want. I'll call you later. Okay, so we were bombing, and if you're just bombing, you can piss a lot of if there's no obvious, pattern to what you're doing.
Yeah, well, it was not just the Ho Chi Minh Trail that was getting bombed. I met who's the guy, Zippo, Major Zippo,
Yeah,
who was a POW.
Smith.
Yes, Smith. He I guess he's still
In
living
Thailand.
He may have died in Thailand, but
No, he's still in Thailand. He's still up.
yeah, but he was in Phnom Penh, and through a third party, I was introduced to him, spent a little time with him. But he was in a POW camp right on the outskirts of Phnom Penh for a while. But he said the B-52s were bombing all around Phnom Penh.
But that's 1972.
Yeah.
He was captured after the North Vietnamese offensive. That big province, what is it? The North Province in Cambodia, about a third of the country is that big province.
Well, it's not nearly a third. If you're talking about Ratanakuri, up in the extreme northeast corner on the border with Laos, and Vietnam, that's Ratanakuri. And below that is Mondulkiri.
Yeah. Well, those two provinces, but particularly the first one, were the primary targets for the menu bombing, because they were far enough away from the populated areas. But there were a lot of people there who were, not recorded. There were Montagnards, different, tribal groups hanging around up there. But the population was heavily North Vietnamese army up there.
Yeah, all those bomb craters became fish ponds.
Yeah, but by 72, they controlled virtually everything down to the Mekong River. So, having a POW camp just outside of Phnom Penh is not surprising.
Yeah.
There's, you know this probably far better than I know, and understand it far better than I know, but the Cambodians always presented an image of being extraordinary peaceful people. But when it came to dealing with each other with Pol Pot and dealing with the Vietnamese, as they did on a regular basis, every time they get pissed off at the Vietnamese, they'd assassinate all the Vietnamese storekeepers in Phnom Penh, toss the bodies in the Mekong to float down back into Vietnam. That doesn't really jive with a bunch of real peace-loving Buddhists who just wouldn't raise a fist against anybody.
No.
But the Cambodian army, despite the training we did with the FANK program, really was not an aggressive army. It was only the Cambodians that you trained in the Mike Force that did all the real work.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Steve, I have to leave, and I want to thank you so much for everything that you have done. You have done an incredible job. I cannot imagine tackling that and being as successful as you have been.
I don't know about the success. I wish we had 40 people here instead of 10.
Well, but the information that you have made available, I'm going to learn how to work a computer here and get my pictures onto your,
Good.
because I've got I took some Super 8 movies that I've had converted to disc.
Mhm.
I've got slides and still photographs, tons of them, and most of them I still remember who the people are, and so I will make a point of learning how to use this computer for something other than ordering parts for my Henry J. So
The videos, I probably can't. I don't think that website puts up videos. But if you send me the videos, I'll put them up somewhere. Videos I can handle. Thousands of pictures I can't handle. So I rely on everybody else to do that. And Mike, did I ever explain to you and tell you that the background on my request to you many years back, about 2000, about 20 years back, when I asked if I could represent you? Larry might get a kick out of this.
I don't remember.
All right. In the late 90s, I plowed through the people in Pentagon, calling them up, asking them. I had heard that there was a computer disk that had 600,000 image files on it from Vietnam, all of the awards, 600,000 award orders. And I finally located it in some sub-basement of the Pentagon, and a contractor had her hands on it. And I said, look, I will pay to have you ship that off to the manufacturer of the disk, have him copy it and send it back to you. And I'll pay for all the costs, all the expenses. And I just want this disk. And she said, well, that sounds fine, but I better ask somebody. And that was where it all fell apart, because somebody at that point was just deciding Social Security numbers were important. I could tell him the Social Security number of the Chief of Staff of the Army, Colin Powell, anybody else they wanted. I know their Social Security number. I know all your Social Security numbers. When we went on R&R, we had orders we passed out to every whorehouse in Southeast Asia with our Social Security numbers on it, and they used that to wrap fish. Anyway, I went to court, and I ultimately had to go to the district court, and I lost my argument with the Department of Defense that they had already released the Social Security numbers, and therefore they had no right to withhold this from me. They wanted $1 million to redact the Social Security numbers in those files. So I gave up on it. It would have been good. I got my own set of 5th group general orders, but I would have spent the time. I was younger, a lot younger then. I would have organized all of those orders, made a database for everything. Had each different unit would do their own unit history. Anyway, the decision was very disappointing. And then I had a thought, and I said, I want a page out of the after action report for one of the Mike Force operations. I want one page. I asked for 3 pages. Page 1, three consecutive pages. I got it from the Command and General Staff College, and I got it from Carlisle Barracks. They sent me those 3 requested pages, unredacted, including your Social Security number and 9 more people from Special Forces on those 3 pages. And they never questioned it. They just sent me the paper. So At that point, I asked you for permission to represent you, because what I wanted to do was go back and sue them for not following the decision in the court that they had obtained. And I figured that I could make them argue the other side of the argument, my side of the argument, in doing that. So I asked you for permission. I got all ready to do that. And then at that point, we no longer had Clinton as president. We had first George Bush, and the Secretary of Defense was what's his name? But I liked him, and I figured he had enough troubles without me. So I gave that up. But that's why I had asked you for permission to represent you in that, on that issue. And I just didn't let it come to anything at the time. It was a very stupid decision on the part of the court. And right now, they basically have classified just about everything that's got Social Security numbers on it. You can't get shit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty stupid. I really feel sad for the guys. You know, I can do what I'm doing because on a set of CIB orders, you got 20, 25 people, and their names are all there. And I can get a lot of CIB orders. I know a lot of people who are in special forces. At first, I didn't even care about Social Security numbers because I couldn't do anything with it. But then I realized it was useful. I can find people based on Social Security numbers. It's not hard. So, I keep them. But the government says, no, they don't want us to have Social Security numbers. And young people, they can't build databases like this because they don't get bulk orders. Everything's electronic, one and off, one off. So that was kind of an interesting thing.
Well, thank you again, Steve. Lieutenant Lehman, sir. It's been a
Indeed,
pleasure.
I'll have to call you back.
indeed. Good to see you again.
And
What has it been? 50 years?
52. Yeah. And Tommy, I've enjoyed your memories and your clarifications. And Randy, you've got a very unique background. And I've enjoyed listening to everything you had to say. I'm going to sign off now. You all have a healthy and long life.
I'm going to do the same thing and the same admonition and compliments to all of you, especially you, Steve. Good to see you all. God bless you. Be well.
And I'm checking out too, Steve. Thank you so much for doing all this.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for all that insight you got. You and Randy, you were in so many places doing so many things. I'm glad I got you at least in some of the places you were at.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Randy.
Yeah.
Be around.
Steve, you must have a ton of paperwork.
I got files and files and files.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be seeing you. It's been a fun 3 days.
Yeah. But do get to me when you're on the computer.
All right. Let me get out of here.